one of the tech champions for the Digital Culture Network. And this webinar is for absolute beginners, so you don't have to know anything about Google Analytics in advance. We're going to go through the different reporting, the different interface that it has, and how you'd actually install it on your website. So what we're going to do is going to record this, and then we're going to transcribe it as well, so the video is accessible. So we'll be sharing that with you after this as well. And feel free to ask any questions in the chat on YouTube, because I'll be looking at that. I've got it by the side of me here, so I'll have a look. I think there's a slight lag, about 20 seconds. So if I'm a bit slow responding to some of the stuff you say, that's the reason. So I just wanted to thank you for, as part of the sign-up process, you actually answered a lot of the questions that you wanted answering in this. It really helped shape the content. So a lot of the stuff that we saw was, what are the benefits? What data is available in Google Analytics? What reports should I look at? How to understand user journeys? What the terminology is in Google Analytics? And then a general overview, because that's what this is, it's for beginners. So that really aligned to what we were thinking when we were putting this together. So hopefully it will give you what you want over the next hour. And this is a series of webinars. So this is the first in many webinars that we're going to be doing over the weeks and months. So I'll tell you a bit more about the other webinars we've got around Google Analytics, and I'll introduce you to the different tech champions we have as well, because they'll be doing things as well coming up, which might be useful for you. So learning objectives from this webinar, we're going to be looking at what Google Analytics can do. We're going to find out how to create an account and then how to install it on your website. And we're going to learn and apply a glossary of terms, technical terms that you can use. So if you're talking to your teams or you're talking to different agencies you might be working with, you'll know what you're actually on about when you talk about these different terms. And then we're going to explore the different reports and the data available. And as I said, I'll be sending this this webinar to you via email afterwards, along with a massive list of resources. So your journey with Google Analytics will be a long one, and it's really interesting when you start getting into it. So hopefully it'll be really useful for you. So I'm just going to do a mix of looking at me, you're going to look at my screen, and we're going to do a bit of presentation slides as well as live demoing as well. So hopefully it all works as we want it to. But you're doing it from home, and as we all are now, and hopefully the internet connection will stay as we want it to. Great. So let me just switch to this. Okay. So there we go. So what is Google Analytics? That's the first question, isn't it? That's what we're here for. Well, what it is, it's a free, powerful web analytics tool, and it's free, which is really good, for arts and culture, but not earning money. And it shows how visitors found your website and what they did when they got there. And it also measures how well your online and offline marketing works. So those three things together, it makes it really powerful and give you a lot of insight about what's going on your website and all the digital activities that you're doing. And why is it useful? So it can tell you things such as where people heard about your website, which pages they visit most when they're on it, what devices they're using, where visitors are in the world, so location data, and then the impact of your marketing activity that we mentioned before. And I'll tell you and show you how we can do that using some live examples about what we've done for this webinar. So first step is how it works. Technically, how does it work? And this diagram explains it. So what happens is that when people visit your website using their devices, it could be their computer or their phone or their tablet, what happens is that a little piece of JavaScript that sits on your website picks that information up, it looks at it, and it sets a cookie. Now, a cookie is a little strip of data that just sits on your browser, on your device, and it allows Google Analytics to understand that you are a certain visitor, and if you return, then you are the same visitor as well. So that information is picked up by the JavaScript, and that data is passed over to Google servers. So it sits there and collates it, and it's collating millions and millions and millions of websites because it's installed on so many across the world. that data can then be aggregated and you can benchmark against different industries, which is really useful. And that information is then passed into the reporting function that we'll look at today that you have access to. So you can see the data that's been collated by Google from the point that you installed it on your website. Now, in the resources I'll send you after that, I'll explain cookies in more detail because it can be quite complex and a bit of understanding you need around that about what it all means. But if you set up Google Analytics correctly, it is GDPR compliant. So everything is anonymized. There's no customer records within Google Analytics data. So next is it installed on my website? Now, that was one of the questions that I had from quite a few of you, because you didn't know. And we find that a lot with the organizations that we're speaking to as part of the Digital Culture Network, is that somebody installed it years ago, maybe, and then they left the organization, but we didn't leave the login details, so they have no idea. So have they got it? So I'll show you how we can check that for now. Let's just move into this. So I've set up a test website for this demonstration. So I registered a free domain and I used a little web service I've got that just creates one-page websites. And we'll share the link to this once we've set up the analytics so you can have a look at it yourself. It's got some of the resources and you might want to look at. Training. Okay. Who knew that domain was still available for free? Brilliant. So as we've got this coming up here, this is our domain, and I'm using Google Chrome for this. And what you need to get is an extension. You can get it on Firefox as well, and it's called Google Tag Assistant. So if you just search for that, it'll give you this plugin, and I'm going to install it on here for you. So I'm going to add to Chrome, and it's just going to install it for me. Okay, so I'm just going to turn off my video because I think you won't be able to see that in the top corner there. So now that I'm on my website and I've got Google Tag Assistant installed, I can just press that button. Checking different stuff. And then I'm just going to enable it. And what I'll do, I'll refresh the page. And then Google Tag Assistant will see what is installed. And there's nothing, because we've not installed anything on the website. So it's saying here where to optimize is to add Google Analytics. And that's exactly what we're going to do. And then we'll look at this afterwards and it'll actually show us the data that's actually available for us. So if we're going to install Google Analytics on our website, we first need to create an account. And we do that by going to analytics.google.com. And we sign in. So you might have a Google account already. I'll show you mine that I set up. So I'm just going to go to analytics.google.com. Can't type. And that will just load up. So this is the first page that comes up. It'll say, welcome to Google Analytics. Now, I've already got a Google account because I've created it for this in advance. But if you were going to use one and needed one, you just go to Google account, type that in, and you click Google account there, and then create Google account. Now, one of the biggest misconceptions with creating a Google account is that it has to be a Gmail account. It doesn't. So when you're creating this, there's a button just underneath where you add the email address, and you click use my current email address instead. Now, I recommend you do this for your organization because, as I was saying earlier, if someone leaves your organization and you've created a Gmail account that nobody's got access to anymore, and you can't remember the password, it makes it very difficult for people accessing this kind of stuff in the future. Now, you can claim Google accounts, Google Analytics accounts. I've done that for quite a few of the organizations already. So if you need help with that, just give us a shout and we can help you through that process. But yeah, if you're setting up a Google account, do it with either a generic email address or one's linked to your work email address. Because I'll show you later on that you can actually add multiple users to Google Analytics at different permission levels. So you don't have to worry about people leaving, and you can have one administration account at the top level and then give access to people at different levels as you go down in a different process there. So once you've got a Google account, you come to this page and I'm going to start measuring. So I'm going to create a Google account. Now, when you've got the options over here for the account name, the best practice is your account name is your business name. So for us, it will be the Digital Culture Network that we're going to use in this example, but whatever your organization name is, you should just put that in there. So I'm going to put Digital Culture Network. I'm going to leave you to read all of the information about Google and the tick boxes there, so you can make a decision on that and yourself. I'm just going to click next. And Google Analytics works not only on web, but it also works on apps. So if you have apps, I'm not sure if any of you do, but you can use Google Analytics on your apps as well. So we're just using it for websites. So that's the example I'm going to click on here. And click next. So website name is your website name. So the properties, you'll have one account, but you can have multiple properties underneath that. So for this one, I'm actually just going to call it what it is. So I'm going to go to my web page. I'm going to copy the URL. I'm going to paste it in there. I'm just going to take off the HTTP, so I don't need that. So that's my website name, and then I'm going to put it in there as well. I'm just going to take off the HTTPS, stick it in there. It's the same information. And then industry category. Most of you will be arts and culture. On the page before, we were looking at whether we wanted to give Google Analytics any of our benchmarking data and share it in that way anonymously. And by doing that, you're allowed to see benchmarking data within Analytics. So it's really quite useful. So I'm going to select arts and entertainment. That's what we are. And our reporting time zone is the United Kingdom, but wherever you are in the world, it might be slightly different. And then I'm going to create it. I'm going to agree to all the terms of service. Now, again, you can spend your time reading those. I've read them. Promise. And then it's creating an account for you. That's the next step. So you can choose whether you want to receive email communication from Google. Sometimes some of it's really good. The stuff they put out, and I highly recommend you follow the Google Analytics Twitter account, because the amount of stuff they share around this is excellent. There we go. So I'm just going to save that. And what this does, it's giving me a prompt for the app that you can download. So if you've got your smartphone, you can access the app, the analytics on your phone once it's all set up. You'll see this blue box here is when you first create an account, Google will give you these prompts and it will guide you through the navigation. So we might see some of that as part of this demo, but as you use it a bit more, it will try and guide you in the different parts of the functionality that's available for you. So once you create the account, you've got a tracking ID. So that is the unique identifier for your analytics account. So wherever you place that code on any different websites, it's all going to feed that information into this Google Analytics account. Now, depending on how and what system you're using for your website, the installation is slightly different. So in the chat, if you want to add the system you use, what I'll do, if you just comment what system you use, if it's WordPress or it's Squarespace or Wix or something like that, if you add that in the chat, what we'll do in the resources, I'll make sure that those are covered and how to add Google Analytics to those different platforms. So if you don't mind adding that in there, and then that'll be really useful for us when we create the resources. So for my website, which is built on a platform called Card, I need to use the actual JavaScript, and that's what this information is here. So it just sits in here, and it's all in this information. So this is the only coding that you're going to be looking at throughout this whole process, just this one bit. So don't worry, this is the scariest part of it. So I'm going to copy this. Now I'm going to go over to my website I've got. This is my website. I just need to go into the back end. So I just need to bring up my other browser window. I was logged in already. Okay, so this is essentially the back end of this website I've created. So we'll share this link on in a second once we've set up the analytics, and then you can have a look at this website. whenever you wish. And we'll update this as well with the resources once it's all done. So what I want to add is a code block for this. Now, as I said before, each of your platforms that your website's built on is different. So this isn't going to be the same for a lot of the things that you can be using, but it's just an example of showing us how we're going to put the code on your site. Okay. So I want to create an embed code. That's what the option that gives us. So I'm going to say it's code. I'm going to call it Google Analytics. And it's going to be hidden because we don't want, this is going to be within the page template, so we don't want it to be seen. And then I'm going to put it in the head. So as I'll explain in the resources as well, this code has to sit in the head section of your website. So when we look at a page in the back end, it sits at the top, but I'll explain that again in the resources. So don't worry about that now. And what I'm going to do in the code section of this, I'm going to paste the code that we've collected from Google Analytics. So there we go. So it just pastes in, just sits there, and then press done. And I'm just going to publish that change using this. Okay. So that's Google Analytics installed on your website. It wasn't that hard, was it? So what I'm going to do now is go back to the live version of the site. I'm going to refresh it. And we're going to use Google Tag Assistant. We're going to have a look at that again. Right, I'm going to have to hide my face again, because I know that blocks that. Okay, so in the top right, I'm looking at it. Click Google Tag Assistant, and hurrah, look at this. Google Analytics is installed on the website. So that's exactly what we want to get to. We know that the data's there. So when we look at the back end of the account, we'll have to see if my user has actually started to track. So I'm going to click back to Analytics. I'm going to look at real-time reports over here on the left-hand side and click Overview. Hurrah! Look at that. So at the moment, there's somebody in Worsley, which is where I live in Salford, looking at the website. That's amazing, isn't it? Perfect. So it just shows you that by putting the code on your website and then as visiting the site, it's then pushing that information into Analytics. It's perfect. Now, if we share that link with you on on YouTube, I think Saeed is going to add it in there. If you can click on it, we'll start to see different users appear on this live live part of the site, the real-time reporting. Now, real-time reports, then they're used. They're not that useful day to day. They're really useful if you're doing a demo like this, so you can show the data coming in. They're really useful if you're doing a webinar, sorry, not webinar, a big on sale of your events or something like that, so you can see loads of people coming to your site. That big program launch that you did, you can start to see it come in. Wow, I've had a nice big chunk of people arrive to the site now. This is fantastic. So what we've got now, this is great. Look at this, all coming in. 53 people are all coming to the site, and you can start to see the locations of where they're coming from. So I've got some in Manchester, Liverpool, plenty in London, they're all coming in. Excellent. Someone in Paris. Wow. Hope it's nice over there. And you'll see that the source of the traffic is all coming from YouTube because it's been shared by Saeed. So you can start to see that this is actually coming through on there. Brilliant. So we know that Analytics is installed on our website. It's collecting data. This is exactly where we want to get to. And at the moment, because we've only just installed this on the website, we're not going to get that much information about the users that are coming to the website and what they're doing, because it's brand new. So it's only just been installed. We don't have any historical data there. So what we can start to do, I'm just going to click on this just so we can have a quick look where everybody is. Hong Kong, amazing. Hello from Hong Kong, Finland, Portugal, Spain, Italy. International reach here. It's pretty good. United States, Australia. It's excellent. It's great to see. Ireland, hello. I'm just going to switch my video back on. Bear with me. So this account that we're looking at here, because it's fresh data, it's not going to give us much insight. So we can't, as a demonstration, it's very difficult for me to show you the different reporting. But luckily, Google make their Google merchandise store. They make the data from that available to anybody who wants to use it. So what we're going to do next is we're going to use that data. We're going to pick it up and we're going to install it into it. We're going to attach our account to it. And that is going to give us loads of all the data that they use and allow us to actually go through this as part of the demonstration. So what you need to do is just search for Google merchandise store, Google Analytics. And the top result is the demo account. So you click that and then scroll down, and where it says access demo account, you just click that button. Load, and it gets there. There we go. So what this has done is loaded the Google Analytics account into and attached it to my Google account. So I can access all this data and have a good look at it. Now, I'm just going to show you one slide now, which is a very important one. And just skip ahead. And this is it. It's the most important thing to know about everything that we're going on. And one thing that scares everybody when they're looking at this kind of data is that when they go into their account, they think they can break it. And you can't unless you go to one area. So all of this in green, you can't break anything. So no matter what you do when you're clicking through and you're playing around the data, you press all the different buttons and stuff like that, don't worry, you can't break it. If you go to the bottom left and click that admin button, and we'll go into that in a second, you can break everything. And that's the thing that you have to be concerned about. So anything else apart from that you're accessing within analytics, don't worry, because you can't break anything. You can look at data, you can manipulate it, but it won't change the core data. If you go into the admin section, there's lots and lots of options in there where you can break it. So just be wary of that. And as I said before, we've got a long journey of different webinars that we're going to be doing around this. And the next one in the series is about auditing your Google Analytics account. In that, we're going to be very much looking in the admin section to make sure it's all set up correctly, whether it's GDPR compliant, whether you've got the right filters in place. So don't worry about any of that stuff now. We'll get to that if you want to join me for the next one. So what I'm going to do now is just switch back and show you in the top left, I can now access the account that we set up, which is the Digital Culture Network one, and also this demo account. Now you see in the demo account, we've got the account name, and then within that, we've got different properties. So they've got so these are your websites, remember, Google Merchandise Store, and then we've got different views. Now this is a recommended setup of having your master view. So as I was saying just previously, when you're auditing your account and you set it up correctly, that's going to be the master account. That's going to have all the configuration. It's going to be relevant to your organization, have all the information in it. The other two views, one's test, so we can start playing around with different things in that, just to test stuff out. And then the third one is the raw data view. So that's an untouched account, an untouched view of the data that's coming in. So we're not manipulating anyway, it just sits there. So we'll go through this in the next webinar, but it's just to show you that as an example, because that's one of the questions about what the difference is between accounts, properties, and your views. So that's a brief summary of that. I'm just going to switch back to the Digital Culture Network account to show you user management. So I'll click Digital Culture Network. I'm going to click the website that we've selected. And at the moment, this one's called All Website Data. So I would change this to the same setup that we've got in the Google one, which is master, test, and raw data. But for now, we're just going to go into this one. And as we said before, there's no data coming into this. We've got the real-time data, but we've got no core data because this is looking from yesterday to, and then prior to that where we didn't have it installed on the website. Now I'm going to go down to the bottom left where it's got the admin section. And you'll see here, you can set different account settings and user management for each of the different areas. So first off, you have the account, and then the property, and then the different views. So you'll see user management is actually available on all three. Just checking this. There we go. All three. So you maybe want to set users up at the account level so they can access all the websites underneath it. You might want to set it at the website level, so only people can access the data from that specific website. Or you might want to do it on a specific view. So you might set up a view which only looks at a certain set of pages or filters out certain things. And you could set that so certain people in your team can only look at those things. What I'm going to do is set this at the account level, just to give you a brief example and just to see the kind of permissions that you can add to it. So I click account management. You'll see that this is the account I've set up, Analytics for Beginners at Gmail. So I just set up yesterday just to show this as a brand new setup. And in the top right, just going to move that aside slightly so you can see it. There's a big plus button. So we click that big plus, blue plus, and then click add users. And what that does is we just enter the email address. So it's dead easy. So whatever email address of the person that you want to have access to, they'll have to create a Google account attached to that email address. So either they might have one already or they can set up a new one. So you add that in there, and then you can set the different permissions. So as standard, it will set it as read and analyze. But you could say you wanted to allow them to do extra stuff within the reporting. So we can look at collaboration, we can look at the editing. So if you tick all of them, that will give them essentially admin levels, and then you can actually get them to manage other users as well. So you can set it at this level. Most people will probably need read and analyze and maybe collaborate. So depending on who you're working with, they can have different levels. Now, if you already have Google Analytics installed on your website and the account is the administrator of your Google account, your Google Analytics account is like an agency, and they tell you that you're not allowed to be the admin, it's wrong. It's a lie. You can be the admin and you should be the admin. This data is your data. You should never feel like that you're locked into an agency based on the permissions that they've set. Technically, there's no reason why they can't give you access. They might not want to because they think you're going to break it, but after you've done this course of series of webinars, you're going to be experts in it anyway. So you probably know more than them anyway. So that's account permissions. I'm just going to leave that and go out of there. So we're now going to go into the different reports using the Google merchandise store data. And as I said before, the real-time reporting on the left-hand side, it's only really useful for on sales or things to just see what's happening now. It's not actually going to give you much insight. The four main areas that you want to be looking at are who are they? That's the audience reports. So that's your users. How did they find me? That's your acquisition. Your behavior reports. What are they doing on the website? And then conversions, what are they worth to me? So are they doing the thing that I want them to do? And now we're going to go into those different reports. But first, I'm going to talk about metrics and dimensions. So those are the things that are going to be bandied around, these things. We're going to talk about metrics all the time and dimensions. And it sounds like, are we entering a different dimension? Sounds fantastic. You're not. All it is, metrics are measurements. So they're essentially numbers. So they're counts of stuff. So number of visitors, number of page views, number of sessions, time spent on your site. And then dimensions are their attributes. So they're like categories. So things like visitor city or region. So as we were looking at before, a dimension could be Italy or Spain because we were looking at the location reports. And then the other ones we've got is things like source of referral, the browser type, and then the operating system. So they are relevant for all the reports that we have within analytics. And then we're going to start, we're going to go into them now. So the first one is, who are my visitors? It's very interesting to know this kind of stuff. So we're going to have a look at the reporting in the Google Analytics of the merchandise store. So we're going to go for there. So again, we click on the top left. Just going to close that. Top left, and we can choose the different demo account. I'm going to click into merchandise store. I'm going to look at the master view. And on the left-hand side, you'll see audience. Now we're going to look at the overview for a start, and I'm going to explain some of the different reporting we've got in there. Just going through some of these questions while we're here. Let's have a look. There we go. Yeah, so, oh, it's brilliant. Syed's answering them for us. Perfect. He knows his stuff, which is great. So when we're in this report, I'm going to talk through some of the different metrics that we have within this. So the top one is users. So we'll see here, users. We've got 10,000 users. Brilliant. Top level. That's good to know. Good, nice top level number. So new users, comparatively to users, are people that have not been to the website before within a certain time period. So we were talking about cookies before. Google sets a 2-year cookie as standard, so it will know within the 2-year period if you've come back to the website, if you've used the same device and the same browser. If you've used a different device, different browser, it doesn't know you're the same user. So if I come to your website and I look at your website on my laptop, and then I come and look at your website on my phone, that's 2 different users, because Google can't differentiate you can't see the difference between and match those 2 things up. So what we always see is when we're looking at new visitors is always an inflated number because it's never going to be 100% accurate. None of this data is 100% accurate, but it's never going to be as accurate as we'd like it to be because there's so many unknowns when it comes to that using different devices and how we move around. The next one is sessions. So when a user comes to your website, they could come back multiple times. And each time they come back, it's a different session. So there's always more sessions than users. If there's not on the analytics that you're looking at, there might be something wrong with that. So we'll have to do a bit of an audit. And a session is when someone comes to your website, if they do nothing, they come to your website and they're looking at it, and a session lasts 29 minutes and 30 seconds. And then a new session will start if nothing's happened after that. So it's a time between different actions. Now, as standard, Google Analytics will be looking at page views. So it's looking at, if you've looked at one page, you've looked at the next page and the next page. And once that last page, after 29 minutes and 30 seconds has passed, that's your session finished. The other one we've got on here is new users. So we're looking at that versus returning. So we've explained that. So returning, people coming back using the cookies that is set. And those ones are quantity metrics. So those are the users, new users, and sessions, the quantity, so the numbers we're looking at there. And then what we've also got is quality metrics. So here we've got average session duration. So it's how long people are spending on your website. Now, if people are spending a long time consuming your content, because it's great content, you're writing loads of blog posts or something like that, then a higher number is what you'd want. If you're if your site is really transactional based and you want to get people through that process as quickly as possible, you might want a lower number. So the numbers that we're looking at here are in context to your organization. So yeah, quantity, and then we've got bounce rate. So bounce rate, people focus on this quite a lot, but don't is the answer. Because depending on the context of the content that you're putting on your page and how you want people to navigate your site, it's probably not that useful. Or it could be useful because a bounce rate is calculated if someone comes to your website and does nothing in Google's eyes, so it doesn't go to another page, then that's classed as a bounce. But if someone's come to your web page and your web page gives you information about your say your address of how to get to you, your visitors page. So if someone comes to your visitors page, they go direct to that page, they see the information they want and they leave. A high bounce rate is not a bad thing, is it not? So it's using these metrics in context in that way. So on this page, what I'm going to do is just turn off our video again, just so we can see in that top corner. Because what we have is some of the most important stuff and what makes it really powerful in the top right. And these are available on all the different reports. And what you've got is the date range picker. So first off, you can set a specific date range that you want to look at. So I might want to look at the analytics data for the whole of March. So I'm going to set the 1st to the 31st of March and apply that. And what that'll do is update the report that we're looking at below. And so this gives us, over that period, you can see that on the weekends, the numbers drop off. And then, I don't know, something must have happened globally because the numbers have dropped off significantly as well and flatlined. Don't know what that could be. So yeah, when we're looking at these different numbers, we can see that on average in March, we're getting so many users, so many sessions. So that's good to know. What we can do then is we can compare it, and this is where it gets really interesting, to different date ranges. So we could look at it, the different, like the month prior. So we want to compare it to the previous period, so the month period, or the previous year. So we're going to look at the month. So it's comparing 1st of March to 31st of March to the 30th of Jan to the 29th of February. So you can see by comparing those two sets of data, we're looking at there's actually been a drop by 17% users and sessions, and we know that what might be contributing to all of those things. So let's have a look at if we wanted to set it to previous year. So then we're looking at March versus March, year on year. Is there been a difference? There probably is again. So year on year, we're actually down 20%, 22% on users. So you can use this in all the different reports. So it gives you a bit more insight about what's actually going on. I'm just going to untick that. And the other important thing in the top right is that, as you see, there's lots of data within analytics. There's lots of reports. You might want to look at specific reports on a regular basis. So what you can do is save them. So there's an option to save the button up here. And then you can give it a name. And what that'll do is save that report in the top left-hand side. So under customization, you've got your saved reports. So it'll appear in there. So it's quick. It's like a bookmark, essentially. So you can quickly access those reports in the future. You can also export the data. So you can do it as a PDF, Google Sheets, Excel, and CSV files. So that's good for sharing with other people in your team. And this is the best one, is that you can set it to email to people on a regular basis, and you don't have to do it every day, every time. You can set it to automatically do it. So if I wanted to send this to a certain person in my team on a regular, like say a monthly basis, I'd put the email address in, I'd give it the name of what I wanted to do in the subject line. I'd say I'm going to send it as a PDF, and I'm going to send it every month, so monthly. And then what day I want to send it on, choose the day. And then any extra information you want to put about it there, and then click send. And what that'll do is set it up and send it automatically to whoever that is from that point onwards forevermore until you ask it to stop, which is brilliant. So you don't have to go into these reports all the time. You can get it to send to yourself, or you can get it sent to other people. So if you recommend setting it at like 8 o'clock on a Monday, so it seems like you're really on it. So your boss thinks you're really really focused and like snappy when it comes to that stuff. So that's the reporting when it comes to the overview. So what other stuff we have in the audience report? Remember, this is who are our visitors. We've got things like demographic data. So you have to turn this on within settings. And again, in the next webinar, we'll cover this. So in demographics, I'm going to click that. And then we're going to click overview. And what that'll look at is in the date range that we've selected, what was the demographic details of those users. So here we've got a big chunk of 25 to 34-year-olds, and they're mostly male. And by doing comparison, you can see if this has changed over time, and does this match up to the target audience that you have. Just to answer the question that we're seeing on about bounce rates and session durations, it could be any page on your website. So it doesn't matter what page they've hit your website, the bounce rate could be those. So it caters for all journeys through the website that you have. So that's an example of the demographic details that are available on your website. So if you're marketing to a certain age range or a certain demographic, and then you're seeing an increase in the analytics, you can see if it's working or not. So it's really useful for that kind of stuff. And it can really inform the marketing that you're doing. The other one is locations. So location data, wherever it's gone. Geo, sorry, in geo and then location. So based on what we were looking at before, you can start to see with this, it's quite a global audience when it comes to this website. And you can start to see the breakdown of the different countries. And when you click into the countries, you can then start to see the different cities. That's the level that it's working at. So we've got England, so a big chunk, and then I'm going to click on city, and that's going to give us a bit more detail. So we can see a big chunk of people coming from London, and Newcastle, Manchester. So you'll have all this information in your analytics once it starts collecting that data. So next on the list is, how did they find me? Now, the acquisition reports, reports. Oh, sorry, just to go back, so I just see your messages on about geographic data. Demographic data. Yes, it isn't inclusive. I think they are changing that, but I've not got any confirmation on that. When we look at Facebook analytics, they are inclusive. And we are seeing the difference there, and we're seeing all the different gender splits. So the demographic details that Google uses for this is for logged in users. Okay, so when you create a Google account, you can choose to say whether you're a male or female, and you can set you put your date of birth in. So that's where it's collecting the data from. So it's not 100% of your users, it's only a small percentage, and it will tell you what percentage that is. I'm just going to switch back to demographic details here. And you'll see for this, it's 42% of the users that are coming to that website do have demographic details, and then Google knows that about them. And obviously, demographic is not tracked as standard. It's up to you as an organization whether you want to turn that on or not. I hope that answers that question, but we can talk about more about that in a bit more detail. So now I'm going to go to acquisition. And yeah, how did my users find me? That's so important for the marketing stuff that you're doing. And when we look at acquisition reports, the traffic and information that's in here is split into source and medium. So sources are the domains that people are using to get to your websites. And then the medium is the broad category for that type of traffic. So you'll see here, you can see some examples for organic, referral, and social and paid as well. So I'm just going to go to all traffic and then channels. We're going to have a look at some of these, and I'll explain what they are. So this is how people are reaching your website. So organic search is people using clicks from search engines, but not the ads. So the ads are usually at the top. So the organic ones are the organic listings that you see. So on Google, on Bing, on Yahoo. Direct is when essentially Google just doesn't know. So it should be called unknown, but they'll call it direct. So there are other scenarios, such as when you type in the address directly into the address bar, it will go into that category. Or if I share a link with you on WhatsApp or something like that, and then you click it, Google doesn't know where that's come from. So because it's encrypted data, that's called dark social, which is a term that's bandied around a bit. People don't really know, Google doesn't know where that link's come from, so it just chucks it into direct because it looks like you've come direct to the website. Now, a referral is users that are sent to your website from other websites. So if someone's got a website has got a link to your website on it, that sits in there, and we'll have a look at that in a second. Social is the categories for Facebook. So anybody that's sharing links to your website on Facebook, on Twitter and LinkedIn, things like that. And again, it will categorize them in there. I'll show you some examples about using campaign parameters in a minute. And that's how you can control the information that comes into Google Analytics that's specific to your activity as an organization. We've also got some others in the list. We've got other, so that's usually when the source and medium data is unavailable or it's not picked up as part of the default channel grouping that the Google Analytics has on here. And we've also got display, so that's advertising, and then paid search as well. So we've got the breakdown of different categories there. One of the biggest questions to ask, a really good one for your organization, is to look at referrals. So over a set period, so in this one, we're just looking at March, but look over a big chunk, a big long-term period. Have a look at referrals, because these are the websites that are linking to you, and there might be one that should be linking to you but isn't. So for example, in this area, Visit Manchester website, if I had a venue here, I would expect to be seeing traffic from Visit Manchester. And if I'm not, I would ask, why? Should I approach them and go, can we do a feature on what we're doing as an organization, and then get a link through to us? Because there's going to be a lot of high traffic websites in your area or within your art form that will be really useful to link through to you. So by looking at your reports, you can see if any traffic is coming from them. And if there's not, you can start to approach them and say, can we do something about you linking to us? And reciprocal links, you can link back as well. So it not only helps the traffic come to your site, also helps the search engine optimization level, because you've got all these domains that are linking through to you. And Saeed can go into much more detail about that, because he is our search engine optimization specialist, and I'm sure we'll see some resources around that come up soon. Yeah, I'm looking at the source, and we've got the different list of websites that link into us there. So that'll give you at the domain level, and you can click into those and to see what pages they're reaching. So you can see what landing pages they're coming to when they hit your site. Next is proving the effectiveness of your activity. So just to answer the question around postcodes and zip codes, no, that information you cannot see in analytics. So it sets it at an area level. It won't give you personal data. Personal data does not appear in Google Analytics at all. If it does, it shouldn't be. I've seen some cases where email addresses have appeared in the search facility and then come into Google Analytics, but you can filter that stuff out. So part of the next webinar is looking for those things and making sure they don't appear. But a standard postcode data is not in Google Analytics. Another question we have around massive institutional website, so tag individual pages. So what I recommend in that scenario is that utilizing Google Tag Manager. So another webinar, so that's the third one in this series. We're going to look at setting that up on your website, and it gives you so much more tracking, and I'll talk about that in a bit more detail. We've got another question about newsletter category. I'll just show you that in a second. So that's proving the effectiveness of your activity. So UTM parameters. Anybody heard of these? So they're also known as campaign parameters and campaign tracking parameters. And what that is I've forgotten what it's called. It's Urchin. I've got it. Urchin tracking module. Bet you knew that, didn't you? And what that does is the website URL that you normally have, you can add extra information to the end of that, and I'll show you an example of that. So you can put campaign source, campaign medium, and then campaign name. So that extra information on the end of URLs will then feed in to analytics. So it's really useful to show the activity that you're doing. So I did it for this webinar. So all the links to Eventbrite were linked up to our analytics, and I made sure all the links that I shared on different channels had this information on. So I'll show you that one example of that URL now. So you'll see here is a nice long URL. It looks quite complicated. Everything up to the question mark is the URL to the website. Everything after that is a UTM parameter. So you'll see here we've got UTM source, and then UTM medium, and UTM campaign. So when we look at those, the next slide, we can see that one's Twitter, one is post, and one is webinar GA beginners, because that's what I've decided to call it, that campaign. Now, again, in the resources, I'll send you information around this. There's quite good blog posts on this stuff to help you get your head around it. But it's really useful for you to do, because everything as standard will either get dumped into social as anyone that shares links to your website will be. So you don't know if it's your activity or just anybody else's, or it will get dumped into the email medium as well. Or it can get dumped into referral, because sometimes if it's not configured correctly, email goes into referral. So what that did is give me this data. So I can now see that the top performing transactions for us on Eventbrite were sharing on Arts Professional. So a lot of you have seen the post that we put on Arts Professional. So I tagged that link up. So when you click that link, you didn't know, but it was actually putting that extra information in and sending it through to Google Analytics for me. So I can see that the best performing one for us was transaction-wise was Arts Professional. Excellent. So we might use that again in the future. The email I shared with the rest of the tech champions, and then they shared their networks, that gave us 108 transactions. And then we've got the click dimensions, the email that we send out. So that's the newsletter that we send out from the DCN. And then we've got all the others that you can start to see down our list. So it gives you a much bigger picture about the activity that you're doing is actually contributing to what you want people to do. You've got Twitter and LinkedIn posts there, you see down the bottom as well. So next one is, what are they doing on our website? So when they're here, what are they actually doing? And I'm just conscious of time, because it's flew by already, so we're going to quickly go through this one. So on the left-hand side again, we've got behavior. Now, as standard, I keep saying that because if you've installed this and not touched it, you can have the default settings for a lot of Google Analytics. Now, that's why the next webinar is so important to configure it for your organization, because there's so many more bits of insight that you'll get about behavior than just page views. But I'll show you the page view reports now. So I'm going to go to, on the left-hand side, site content and all pages. What this will do is show you the best performing websites, the best performing pages on your site. So which ones are getting the most traffic. So that's just top level page views. So in this example, the top one is home. Now, if your analytics installation, it will probably just have a /, and that means the home page that you're looking at. So the top one for this is the home page, and then you can see the different amount of page views as we go down. Go down the list there. That's quite good to know at the top level, but the more interesting reports is looking at the landing pages and the exit reports. So landing pages, I'm going to click on the left-hand side again. Now, most people assume that everyone comes through your homepage and then navigates through your website. They don't, and this shows you that they don't. So yes, you get a big chunk of your traffic that's coming through that route, but a lot of other traffic is actually going deeper into your website. So because people are searching on Google, or you've sent links deeper into your website, people actually go further in. And this will give you an example of what that journey is. So you can start to see, when we're talking about customer journeys through your website, you can start to see the landing pages that people are coming in, and then the exit pages where people are leaving. So then you can start to build up a bigger picture of what's actually happening on your website. So coming into your website and then coming out again. I'm just going to quickly show you, because it was one of the questions that we received as part of the sign up. So if I wanted to look at a specific landing page, so I've got a page on this example, I'm going to click on the second one down in this. So I've got that, loads of people have come to it. I want to know where they came from. So we were looking at acquisition before, and what the powerful thing about Google Analytics is that we can start to use secondary dimensions to pivot the data. So what we're going to look at is the source and medium of that specific page. So I've clicked into the page. I'm going to click secondary dimension, and there's lots and lots of options in here throughout all the other pages and reports. So I'm going to search for source, and I'm going to click source medium. So that's going to give me the acquisition data for this specific page. So what we can now see is that big chunk of data comes from Google organic search. There's also people coming in, over 1,000 sessions coming in from the Creator Academy on YouTube. So you start to see how people are entering your site and what the journey is and what websites are linking through to you and all this kind of stuff. So it's really, really interesting data about understanding what the bigger picture is. So within behavior, you've got other things here. I'm not going to go into it now, but you can have a look at that in your own time about the site speed. So is your website performing well? Like, is it loading quick enough? And also site search. So when people are on your website, are they searching for terms? And if are they finding the content that they're looking for? So it gives you a nice idea about what people are actually looking for on your website. And the other one below that is events. Now, event information, we're not talking about events such as this. We're talking about events as in things that happen. So it could be interactions with your website or things that we want to track. Now, again, I'm saying it again, as standard, that data does not appear in analytics. So what you need to do is attend the Google Tag Manager webinar to understand what you can track, because it is more than just page views. The additional tracking that you can have that it doesn't track is things like downloading files. So if you're spending loads of time creating PDFs and you want to see if people are actually interacting with them, actually reading them, you can set this up. Outbound link clicks, scroll depth, so people reading down at the whole content. If you're creating a massive blog post, are they reading all the way down? Video plays, email clicks, so people get in contact with you, and then things like telephone clicks as well. So this is an example of the stuff that's not tracked as standard, but it can be tracked. So we can help you set that up. And then the last area that we're looking at and the last set of reports is, what are they worth to me? Now, the question to ask about your organization or about what you're trying to do is, what are your objectives as an organization? What is the point of your website? Is it there to provide information? Is it there to generate revenue? So you need to ask these questions before approaching and going into analytics and looking at and setting up anything within the conversion reports. So you need to take a step back, think about that as an organization, and then we can set those things up for you and help you through that process. And we'll learn more about that in the webinars that are coming up. So a few of the examples of things that people do track within conversions when it comes to arts and culture organizations are things like buying a ticket, viewing a Visit Us page, making donations, subscribing to newsletters, or watching a video. So it's really, really specific objectives that you want them to achieve. Now, these things are all configured within the admin panel. And as we've seen, when we're looking at these reports, you've got the last set of columns is the conversion report. So you can see that for the Google Merchandise Store, they've set up specific goals about purchase completed, engaged users, registrations, and then entering the checkout. So those are the goals that they want to achieve. Now, your organization will be very, very different. And we'll talk about those in the next webinar. But just to quickly show you about setting up those kind of goals, it's in the admin section. So remember, it's the danger zone. You might break things in here, so be very careful. So for each view, you'll have goals. And you can see that they're set up here for, this is what Google have set up to track. Now, some can be done by a destination. So enter checkout, they're setting that goal to fire whenever somebody visits a specific page on their website. Now, you could set this up for your newsletter subscribers. So if someone comes to your website, signs up, and then they get sent to a thank you page on your website, you could set that as a destination goal. And then you can start to analyze that data within all the other reports. So there's lots of information, but it's so important to set those specific things because it feeds into all the different reports. And then you can start to look at things like conversion rates. So the amount of people coming into your website, flowing through, what's the conversion rate for them to doing the thing you want them to do. And you can also start using segments. So it's a bit too complex for this beginner session, but segments allows you to start comparing different breakdowns of the data that's available. So you could say, I want to look at a certain age range, and it does that age range compared to a different age range convert better than the other one? And if so, shall we put more effort into marketing towards those kind of people, or is there opportunity there? So the kind of insight that you start to get from those kind of things by looking at the data is really, really interesting, and it's useful for marketing. Now, as we mentioned before, we've got some more webinars coming up. So the next one is, that's not it, is this one, which is how to audit your Google Analytics account. So we're going to be looking at how to improve the data quality. You need to be really comfortable about the data that's available to you and make sure that you have confidence in it. And we'll guide you through that. So please join us on Thursday, the 14th of May for that one. We'll give you the sign-up links for those. And then the Google Tag Manager for absolute beginners. So all that additional insight that you're missing out on as standard analytics, Google Tag Manager can give you that. And it's an amazing platform once you get your head around it. Now, there's also a lot of webinars going on from organizations, sector support organizations, such as the AMA and Audience Agency as well. So please check those out. Again, we'll add that to the resource link so you can have a look at those and sign up for those, because the stuff that they're doing around interpreting audience data will be really useful for you, because Google Analytics is a big part of that. And then lastly, the Digital Culture Network. So, this is us. There's 9 of us. We've got the 9th one starting on the 4th of May. So she'll be joining us in the Bristol office. But we're positioned all across the UK, and we have different specialisms. So if you need help in any of these areas, and you're an organisation that is eligible for funding from the Arts Council, then please do get in touch, because we're here to help. And that's it for me. Thank you for all your questions. If we've not answered it as part of this, or as part of Saeed's responses to it, I will answer them as part of the resources as well. So I'll use that to dictate the content on there. I hope that's been useful. Please do sign up to our newsletter. Please do sign up to follow us on Twitter, so our AceDCN, to know about the different stuff that's coming up. Great. So, have a great rest of your day. Bye.